Hey everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling the world of research. Specifically, how do scientists ask the right ST questions? And how do they get the right data?
Okay.
So to do that, we're going to be cracking open a psychology textbook.
Sounds fun.
Now I know what you're thinking.
Uh-huh.
Textbook? A little dry, right?
Yeah, it could be.
But trust me, this stuff's really interesting. We're talking about practical stuff.
Okay.
Stuff that can help you spot a bad argument.
Yeah.
Or understand how those polls you see everywhere actually work.
Interesting.
So to kick things off, let's talk about the hypothesis.
All right.
Most people think it's just a fancy word for a guess,
Right.
but it's way more than that.
Yeah, a hypothesis, it's a testable prediction
Okay.
about how things are related. It's like a roadmap for researchers you know.
Mm.
It helps them make sense of their findings.
So it's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You got to shape it
Yeah.
into something you can actually investigate.
Exactly. And there are specific qualities that make a hypothesis strong.
And our source material highlights a few, right?
Yes. A strong hypothesis. Well, first, it needs to be clear
Okay.
and well-defined, so everyone understands
Right.
what's being investigated. It also has to be testable,
Makes sense.
meaning you can actually gather evidence to support it
No.
or refute it.
So it can't be some vague notion.
Right.
You can't really pin down.
Exactly. And it should connect to what we already know,
Okay.
building upon existing knowledge. Or maybe even challenging
Yeah.
current understanding. It's like adding a new piece to a puzzle,
Oh, I like that.
not starting a whole new one.
The puzzle analogy. So it's about making sure your research
Right.
is grounded in what's already out there.
Yeah.
Not just coming up with something totally out of left field.
Exactly. The textbook actually has this interesting story
Yeah.
about the difference between contexts of discovery
Oh, yeah.
and contexts of justification.
I remember that. That was a real light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
Just realizing how scientists take that initial spark of an idea and turn it into a rigorously testable hypothesis.
It highlights the process of refinement.
Okay.
You know how scientists take their initial hunches and shape them into these precise research questions?
So it's about taking that raw idea and chiseling it down until you have something that you can really investigate.
Right.
Now, once you have that solid hypothesis,
Okay.
the next step is understanding the different types.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The textbook focuses on two main types, the null hypothesis
Okay.
and the alternative hypothesis.
Okay.
So imagine you're setting up a debate,
Right.
a friendly debate. The null hypothesis, that's like your opponent's argument.
Yeah.
It assumes that there is NO relationship
Okay.
between the things that you're studying.
So it's basically what researchers are trying to prove wrong.
Exactly. Think of it like a courtroom drama.
Okay.
The null hypothesis is the defendant, and the researcher is the prosecutor,
Right.
trying to present enough evidence
Yeah.
to convince the jury, the scientific community,
Right.
that the null hypothesis is guilty, meaning it's false.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
That analogy makes it so much clearer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to disprove the null hypothesis,
Right.
what's the alternative hypothesis all about?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The alternative hypothesis, that's what the researcher actually believes to be true. It proposes that there is a relationship
Okay.
between the things that they are studying.
And the textbook uses a really great example
Yes.
to illustrate this. The relationship between vocabulary development
Right.
and childhood amnesia.
Yeah. It's a perfect way to understand how researchers use these two types of hypotheses
Right.
to investigate these complex phenomena.
That's where it finally clicked for me. Why scientists even bother
Yeah.
with this whole null hypothesis thing.
It's all about having a clear framework,
Right.
for testing your ideas and figuring out whether your research actually holds up.
Speaking of things holding up, this brings us to another crucial point.
Okay.
Understanding the potential for errors in research.
Absolutely.
Right.
The textbook talks about type 1
Okay.
and type 2 errors.
Yeah.
And these are essential to understand if you want to be, a savvy consumer of research.
This is where I think it gets really important for everybody.
Right.
Because we were just bombarded
Yes.
with research findings every day.
All the time. And being able to recognize these potential errors can really save you from falling for misleading conclusions.
So a type I error.
Yeah, a type I error is like a false alarm. It's like concluding that a new treatment works wonders when, in reality, it's no better than a placebo.
Oh, like thinking you aced a test.
Exactly.
When you actually failed it.
Yeah, perfect example.
Oh,
A type 2 error, on the other hand, is more like missing a crucial clue.
Okay.
It's concluding that a treatment has no effect.
Right.
When it actually does.
Okay.
It's like missing a medical diagnosis because a test failed to detect the problem.
So in one case, you're getting like a false positive.
Right.
And in the other, a false negative.
Yeah.
Knowing about these errors, it seems like a real superpower.
It does.
When it comes to evaluating research.
It helps you separate the real deal from the hype.
Now, all this talk about testing and drawing conclusions brings us to another huge EE factor in research.
Yeah.
Sampling.
Sampling.
Yes.
It's the bridge between studying a small group and making accurate claims about a much larger population.
You know, I've always wondered how a poll of just a few thousand people can accurately reflect the opinions of millions.
It's like magic.
Yeah, it's like magic.
That's the beauty of sampling.
Okay.
By carefully selecting a subset of a population, researchers can actually draw inferences about the whole group. And it's not just about saving time and money, although those are important factors. It's about getting reliable data that reflects the bigger picture.
So it's not just grabbing whoever's available. There's a real science to it.
Absolutely. And that's what we'll be diving into next. The different methods researchers use to navigate the sampling maze.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's like having a whole toolkit, for gathering information. You wouldn't use a hammer to fix everything.
No.
Sampling is about choosing the right tool for the job, so you get the most accurate and meaningful data.
So just to recap for a second, we've talked about hypotheses, the different types, how to avoid those errors that can lead to false conclusions. Then we started exploring sampling, where researchers pick a group to represent a much bigger population.
And it's amazing how many different sampling methods there are.
Yeah.
Each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Now, our source material dives into a bunch of them, but it seems like they all kind of fall into two main categories.
Yeah, you're right. The textbook outlines two broad approaches. Probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is kind of like drawing names out of a hat. Everyone in the population has a chance of being selected, which makes the results more reliable, more generalizable.
So probability sampling is all about that randomness. Making sure everyone has an equal shot at being included.
So one example of probability sampling is simple random sampling, where literally every single person in the population has an equal chance of being selected. Then there's stratified random sampling, where the population is divided into subgroups, like age groups, ethnicities. And then individuals are randomly selected from each of those subgroups.
So if you want to make sure your sample reflects the diversity of the population, you'd go with stratified random sampling.
Precisely. Make sure you're getting representation from all the different segments of the population.
And then there's cluster sampling.
Yes.
Which sounds a little more complex.
It is a bit more involved. Imagine you divide a city into different neighborhoods. And then you randomly select a few neighborhoods to study. That's cluster sampling in a nutshell. It's especially useful for large-scale studies, where it's just not feasible to reach every single individual.
Now, on the flip side, we have non-probability sampling. It's the main difference there.
So with non-probability sampling, not everyone in the population has a known chance of being selected. It's often used when random selection isn't really feasible. Or when researchers have a specific group in mind that they want to study.
So it's less about generalizability and more about getting insights from a particular group, even if it's not perfectly representative of the whole population.
So one example is convenience sampling, where researchers just select individuals who are readily available, like asking your friends to participate in a study. Quick and easy. But not necessarily representative of everyone.
I can see how that would be useful
Right.
for certain types of research,
Yeah,
especially when you're just trying to get a general sense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Then there's quota sampling, which is similar to stratified sampling,
Okay.
but without that random selection. Within the subgroups,
Okay.
researchers basically set quotas
Right.
for different characteristics.
Right, like age, gender.
Yeah, age, gender, income.
Okay.
And then they recruit participants
Hmm.
until those quotas are filled.
So it's kind of like aiming for a representative sample,
Yeah.
but without the strict randomness
Right.
of probability sampling.
You got it.
Okay.
And then we have purposive sampling,
Hmm.
where researchers handpick individuals
Okay.
based on very specific criteria
Right.
or expertise. It's like casting for a movie.
Uh-huh.
You're looking for people
Yeah.
who fit particular roles
Right.
or have specific knowledge to share.
And then there's snowball sampling,
Yes.
which sounds kind of intriguing.
It is interesting.
Okay.
It's like a chain reaction.
Okay.
Researchers start with a few participants
Uh-huh.
who meet their criteria, and then they ask those participants to refer others
Oh, okay.
who might also be eligible for the study.
So it's like a referral network
Yeah, exactly.
for research participants.
It's a great way to reach populations that are hard to access,
Okay.
like people with rare diseases,
Mm.
individuals who engage in, specific behaviors.
And last but not least,
Yes.
we have systematic sampling.
Imagine you have a list of every student at a university,
Okay.
and then you select every 10th student
Okay.
for your study. That's systematic sampling.
All right.
It's efficient,
Hmm.
can be quite effective,
Uh-huh.
but it can also introduce bias
Okay.
if there's a pattern to the list itself.
So if the list happens to be organized
Yeah,
in a way that clusters certain types of students together,
right.
your sample might not be truly representative.
Exactly. It's important to be aware of those potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
I mean, with all these different sampling methods,
Yeah.
it's clear that choosing the right approach
Right.
is crucial
Yeah.
for getting reliable results.
It's like having a superpower.
It is.
Being able to look at a study and say,
Right.
wait a minute, how did they choose their participants? Does their sample actually represent the group they're claiming to study?
Exactly. Understanding sampling methods
Yeah.
really helps you evaluate the validity of research
Mm-hmm.
and separate the wheat from the chaff
Right.
when it comes to information overload.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a vital skill today
Yeah.
where we're just bombarded
Yeah, we are.
with data
Constantly.
from all directions.
And it's not just about scrutinizing the work of others.
Yeah.
It's about applying these principles
Yeah,
to our own thinking, our own decision-making.
absolutely.
I mean, we make choices every day based on information we gather, whether it's deciding what to buy or where to travel,
Right.
who to vote for.
Exactly.
Yeah, these.
And having a framework for critical thinking,
Hmm.
for asking the right questions,
Yeah.
evaluating the evidence.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference
We can.
in the quality of those decisions. It's about recognizing
Right.
that not all information is created equal,
Right.
and understanding how that data was collected
Uh-huh.
can give you a really powerful lens
Mm-hmm.
for interpreting the world around you.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for information.
It is.
You can kind of see beyond the surface, understand the how and the why behind the claims being made.
Exactly. And it all starts
Yeah.
with that fundamental building block of research,
Right.
the hypothesis.
The hypothesis.
By understanding how scientists formulate these testable predictions
Mm.
and gather the evidence
Yeah.
to support or refute those predictions,
Uh-huh.
you can start to see the world
Yeah.
through a more critical and informed lens.
I like that. Yeah, it really is like having a superpower you can use in everyday life.
It is.
You hear some statistic or research finding,
Right. Yes.
and instead of just taking it at face value,
Yeah.
you can ask those key questions. Okay, how did they get the data? Was their sample representative?
Right. Was there hypothesis?
Yeah. All these things,
Those questions give you the tools to cut through all the noise
right?
and make more informed decisions
Right.
based on, solid evidence.
And it's about becoming a more critical, discerning consumer of information,
Absolutely.
which I think is more important now than ever.
It is. And it all starts with curiosity and a good question.
Right? Yeah.
Don't be afraid to question the things that you see and hear.
Right.
To dig a little deeper. Understand the evidence behind those claims.
It's like that old saying, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
Exactly.
So what if we turn the tables a little bit? What research study would you design
Oh, wow.
now that you have a better understanding of hypothesis formulation
Okay.
and sampling?
That's a great question. I think I'd be fascinated to explore the impact of social media on attention spans.
Okay.
There's so much anecdotal evidence out there.
Right.
But I would love to design a study that could really pinpoint the relationship between social media use and our ability to focus.
That's a fantastic idea. I've often wondered about that myself, and that's what I love about these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding research. It's
Right.
about asking new questions
Yeah.
and inspiring us to go out and explore the world around us
Absolutely.
with, a more critical eye.
With a more curious eye.
Yeah.
And it's about empowering you to become an active participant
Okay.
in the world of knowledge,
Right.
not just a passive consumer of information.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's
Okay.
leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay.
Think about a question that's been bugging you, an assumption you want to test,
Right.
a phenomenon you'd love to investigate further.
Use what we've discussed today as a springboard
Right.
for your own research journey.
Perfect.
Formulate a hypothesis. Consider how you'd gather the data. Think about the sampling method to use.
And who knows, maybe your research will lead to a groundbreaking discovery.
Or at the very least, it'll deepen your understanding
Right.
of the world
Yeah.
and equip you to navigate the information landscape
Right.
with confidence
Absolutely.
and discernment.
So keep those questions coming.
Yeah.
Until next time. Happy researching, everybody.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community for more insights into psychology and personal